Hello viewers, my name is Adam.
And I'm Aaron.
And this is Seeking Media Productions. And we're going to be discussing in this video, for the first time, a brand new video series, Franchise Deconstruction.
In this particular episode, we're talking about that little known indie series called Star Wars.
So, we're going to take a deep dive and let's explore something that I feel as though it's a very troubling issue for us. Star Wars kind of lost its way, especially for like the mainstream public.
Somehow, this mega giant in filmmaking history, which was once the top pillar of some of the biggest franchises and blockbusters out there, has, molded a little bit, maybe. It's not what it used to be.
So we're going to address the very common question that I wanted to pose for this video. What is Star Wars? A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a man named George Lucas will be surmounted in cinematic history when he presented his space opera in 1977, which would go on to spawn a multimedia mega franchise that it is today. The little movie that could will be forever known as Star Wars.
At the time of its inception, Lucasfilm was not the surefire hit they would become. The studio, which was then 20th Century Fox, did not have much faith in this project, thus allowing George Lucas to have nearly all the creative rights to the film. The movie itself centered around a young boy living on an alien desert planet. His life will be forever changed when two droids, withholding a message from a desperate rebel princess, and propels him to the midst of an intergalactic war.
The film will gross more than $700 million, and eventually two sequels followed in the form of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Its sequel, The Empire Strikes Back, is widely considered to be the most influential episode in the series due to the expanse and mythology, characters, and a twist which will shock fans for years to come. The latter film in the trilogy, Return of the Jedi, will see its hero grow from a naive boy from his home planet to joining the ranks of the legendary Galactic Knights of the Republic and liberating the galaxy from the oppressive Emperor. This particular entry, though not as widely praised as its predecessors, was still successful by closing the book on Luke's journey and bringing much needed closure to his relationship with the infamous Darth Vader.
As far as audience would know, the original trilogy was to end right here. But of course you can't keep a good series out for too long. The expansive world known as the known galaxy would give birth to concepts revolving around good versus evil, light and dark, rebels against the Empire, and of course, the mystical and all-encompassing connection that binds them all together, the Force. As a science fiction series, Star Wars incorporates the typical factors that come from the genre. Spaceships such as TIE fighters and A-Wings, Star Destroyers, aliens, vast planets, and the interstellar travel known as light speed.
In addition to its sci-fi elements, Lucas introduces the aspect of which character of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker's mentor, will define as this: the Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. The Force will be a catalyst towards forming two rival factions in the form of the Noble Jedi Order and the sinister antithesis, the Sith.
Practitioners of the old religion will classify the utilization of this power into two distinct yet unified dualities, the light side and the dark. Despite its genre tropes, what should be understood about Star Wars is how the series reflects the theories and concepts addressed by the known mythologist Joseph Campbell. In his book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, Campbell illustrates his theory of the mythological structures found in world myths. This is also known as the hero's journey.
to help us out, we have a very good guest and a good friend of mine. Like you'll be able to look at some of his work, maybe through Instagram on the Beyond the Outer Realm, and he's also a videographer in his own right. Welcome, Samuel Hinkin.
Hey guys, thanks for the introduction.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. So Sam, what material did you come across in the expanded series do you find to be most important to yourself as a fan and as important for the series going forward in Star Wars?
Well, there's a few sources. I always go back on Knights of the Old Republic. There's a lot of themes about Jedi, like the classes. There's the Sentinel and the Guardian, things like that. You have the yellow saber, the blue or the green, and I think that's really shown itself in a lot of the series, like Rebels and Clone Wars. You see the Temple Guards, and you learn about things like the Grey Jedi through like Ahsoka. We see that not everything is light and dark.
With stars in his eyes, George Lucas will produce a new set of Star Wars films 16 years later in the form of the prequel trilogy. In this new installment, Lucas will emphasize political intrigue, extensive usage of CGI effects, and the descent of Anakin Skywalker towards the dark side. It is with the release of the first film, The Phantom Menace, that the series is introduced to not only the prophecy of the Chosen One, but the foundation of Star Wars chronological order, as this movie marked the first in the Skywalker saga.
Its sequel, Attack of the Clones, explores the beginning of Anakin's path towards the dark side, while also setting the stage for the series' most revered conflict in its mythos, the Clone Wars. This event was acknowledged in the first installment in the original trilogy, known as Episode 4, A New Hope. The Clone Wars would eventually be further explored in 2 animated series and literary media. The end, or rather the beginning of Anakin Skywalker's arc, would be helmed in the finale of the 3rd film, Revenge of the Sith. This particular trilogy would be met with criticism and backlash from the fan bases due to its handling of the Star Wars mythos.
Starting with Episode 1, Lucas would dive deep into the political realm of the Republic, whom at this point in history are dealing with the separatist parliament and the re-emergence of the shadowy cult of the Sith. The execution of these political matters, though well-intentioned and explain the rise of the Galactic Empire, instead felt overburdened and long-winded and exhausted, convoluted scenes of debates and lobbying. The inclusion of a governmental structure is better emphasized in other science fiction series like Star Trek, Frank Herbert's Dune, and more recently, James S. A. Curry's The Expanse. For those series, the political presence is told in the forefront of their narrative, whereas Star Wars relegates it to the behind the scenes of its main focus of space battles.
During these perilous times, the Jedi work alongside the Republic as they believe they're on the right side of this conflict. The Jedi Council is at the heights of their power and influence. Social aspects such as slavery is touched upon within the planets populating the Outer Realm. Perhaps the most controversial inclusion in Star Wars would be the explanation that Force-sensitive individuals and their symbiotic relationship with creatures known as midichlorians is how the Force works. What was once understood as a mystical, all-surrounding presence that only a chosen few are able to wield is now regulated to oversimplified and scientific reasoning. In retrospect, Lucas's decision in creating the prequel series was to formulate poetry that rhymes with the initial saga. This is supported through specific narrative beats and visual cues that mirror events from the original trilogy. The specific approach can be viewed as a beautiful transition of the story, but it can also be seen as the overarching reason the series became stagnant. This method will later be the catalyst to the franchise's problems going forward.
Do you feel as though that the movies should have been a lot more focused on its more open setting, and not just focusing so much on what they consider as a major storyline.
I wish it was more accessible. You know, I wish people didn't have to watch cartoons that were for kids to get those cool backstories, because I have a hard time convincing people to watch them at times, you know? But at the same time, was Disney going to put that much money into making all that live action? I mean, that's the thing with Star Wars, is it takes so much to make those movies, so much money, you know? And you can't screw it up. You can't produce something that's a low budget. And like Mandalorian is just at the line, I feel like. If the CG was any worse than that, I don't think people would be happy.
7 years later, the unthinkable happened. George Lucas, the father of the Star Wars series, relinquished his ownership of his production company, Lucasfilm, to Disney for around $2.2 billion. In this new age of Star Wars, Disney surmounted their control of the franchise with the announcement of a new sequel series set after the events of Return of the Jedi. Under new management, former Disney CEO Bob Iger appoints a close acquaintance and producer, Kathleen Kennedy, to run the Lucas division. In order to wipe the slate clean of prior developments and criticisms in the Star Wars franchise, Kennedy declares a backlog of various publicized stories as non-canon, otherwise known as legends.
In preparation of this new trilogy of films, Disney hires directors J.J. Abrams, head of the Bad Robot division, Rian Johnson, and Colin Trevorrow. In addition to the sequels trilogy, Lucasfilm would also announce another set of theatrical films set within the franchise, but outside of what Disney considers the main saga, a Star Wars story. With the first film slated as The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams re-enters the galaxy with a brand new set of heroes walking in the footsteps of legacy characters. Anticipation for the series revival was at an all-time high, as the marketing of the film promised a fresh new direction in the form of a more inclusive, diverse cast of actors portraying the leads. The initial promotion for The Force Awakens would present audiences with a reformed stormtrooper named only as Finn, a scavenger girl named Rey, a resistance fighter pilot by the name of Poe Dameron, and a menacing cloaked figure called Kylo Ren.
Its release proved highly successful, immediately becoming one of the highest grossing films of all time. This installment, though heralded with new faces, felt overwhelmingly like the retelling of the first film, A New Hope. Yet again, audiences are thrust into a desert planet and are dragged halfway across the galaxy in an interstellar war between the Resistance or Rebel Alliance and the First Order, the remnant of the original Imperial Empire. Characters such as Poe Dameron and Finn were relegated to less important side characters to make room for development towards the franchise's new lead, Rey.
Villains like General Hux and Captain Phasma would be underdeveloped and passed off as comedic Saturday morning cartoon threats. The series' main antagonist, Kylo Ren, who was at first showed promise with an introduction with the new Force abilities, eventually became the mere shadow of his grandfather, Darth Vader. Abrams' approach to this series was through the lens of what he considered a mystery box. Plot details surrounding major characters like Rey's lineage and other details essential to the trilogy's story were considered to be left and picked up down the line.
With this send-off, writer-director Rian Johnson will helm the next episode, The Last Jedi. Probably the most divisive entry in the Star Wars history, Johnson's The Last Jedi subverts the expectations that originated in The Force Awakens in order to craft a narrative more akin to his own deconstructive methods. In doing this, the sequel series finds itself starting from Act 1, while trying to reintroduce each character and their driving focus in the trilogy.
In short, the mystery box in which Abrams was excited to open throughout the saga was abandoned and left on the cutting room floor.
Due to the mixed reception between fans and critics of The Last Jedi, Disney began to worry about the direction of the last film in the trilogy. Colin Trevorrow, who was originally the director of Episode 9, would later not helm it at all. To entrust the success of the movie, Disney hires J.J. Abrams to conclude the trilogy that he started.
The direction The Rise of Skywalker was going to take was to give finality to the Skywalker saga that began with the original trilogy, the prequels, and the sequel films. Abrams resurrects Palpatine into the new trilogy as the main antagonist behind all the events without ever giving a clear reason why. Rey's parentage is also revisited, as it is intertwined with the emergence of Palpatine and the source for her strong connection towards the Force. Kylo Ren's rushed character development is driven to its predictable conclusion with his turn backwards towards the light.
The rest of the characters and their story arcs continue to get little to no development, since there is not enough screen time to address any new concepts before the big battle sequence that happens in almost every Star Wars film.
So at the very end of the day, what is Star Wars if not a story that takes place in a galaxy far, far away?
The initial premise brings so much possibilities for future storytellers to take upon and go have fun with it. And despite its very misgivings from later past installments, especially in this recent age, I still feel as though there is some glimmer of hope for the franchise in general.
But that's all we have today, guys. Thank you for paying attention, and I hope anybody who's out there, who has their hands on the franchise now, give a look out for and see, just our take on maybe some things that may go for it. Maybe it might help out. Maybe it won't. But I mean, at the end of the day, all we can hope for is that you just don't give up on this. You don't give up on a franchise that's everybody has a stake in.
Now, after this video, be sure to be on the lookout for the second part of the franchise deconstruction to Star Wars, where we'll be giving ours in the form of a fan fiction, like possible outcome of how the sequel series should have panned out.
It's sure to be a crowd pleaser, hopefully.
Yes. But until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment below. I want to hear your thoughts.
Please hit that little bell as to how you're going to get those notifications. And, we want to be out there getting you guys more content. And we want you to make sure that you can get to it.
We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So you can follow up on there.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Adam.
And this has been a Seeking Media Production special.